Hi, this is Valerie Leonard again. I am the founder of nonprofit Utopia. I want to welcome you back. We're focusing on lesson 3, lasting impact, building sustainable organizations. We'll talk about productive organizations. And before we get into our lesson, I just want to remind you that if you have not yet done so, please download the workbook, go to lesson 3. You'll see a note section. Follow along, take notes as needed, and then afterwards you should do the questions for the third quiz, and that will help you to retain the information and get ready for lesson 4. So in our second lesson, we covered the working definition of powerful as it relates to this course. We talked about the characteristics of powerful organizations and the typical activities in which powerful organizations engage. In this lesson, we're going to be focusing on the working definition of productive as it relates to this course. We'll also talk about the characteristics of productive organizations and the typical activities in which productive organizations engage. So our working definition of productive is yielding results or having the ability to yield in large amounts. And that definition comes from Merriam-Webster. So what type of activities do productive organizations tend to engage in? We're talking about capacity building activities at this point. Productive organizations tend to engage in the strategic planning process. Now, a strategic plan typically should be done for a 3 to 5 year planning horizon, and usually in environments like this where there's a lot of change, the shorter the better. So you want to look at more than 1 year, obviously, but 3 years is pretty much standard in this environment. So what is strategic planning? It's the process in which organizations take stock of their mission, vision, and core values to position themselves to capitalize on changes in their environment. And the end result is a set of strategies to achieve a set of long-term goals and objectives for the organization. And the critical questions the strategic planning process answers is, where do we want to go? And that pertains to the strategic direction, and how will we get there? And that pertains to strategies and tactics. A second thing that productive organizations do is develop programs. I know that sounds painfully obvious, but it's really not. In many instances, we develop services and we package them as programs. There's a subtle difference. Both programs and services are developed for the good of our clients and communities, but with services, there is no intentionality about improving the lot of the clients or the community, even though we do them for the good of the community, for the good of our clients. But there's really no way of proving that our services are in fact helping people. And when I say that, there's usually no goals, no objectives other than we want to serve X number of people. There is no intentionality around changing the lots of the clients who participate in those services. There are no outcomes, there's no measurements other than the number of people who participate in most instances. On the other hand, a program, there is significant intentionality around making change. There are goals, there are objectives, there are outcomes, there are ways to measure the outcomes, and your really good programs are going to be evaluated. So I just want to give a food example to help you understand the difference between programs and services. So for example, if you were running a soup kitchen, typically what you would do is you would provide meals, you would take the names and addresses of the people that come through just to document that you are serving X number of people. But beyond that, you really haven't done anything to change a lot, of the people who are participating. On the other hand, if you are doing a diet, say you are a diabetic, say you need to lose weight, or if you have high blood pressure, you have very specific goals and objectives. You have certain diets, you have certain exercise, and you have targeted weight, you have targeted blood pressure levels, you have targeted blood sugar levels. And over time, as you change your diet, as you change your lifestyle, you would expect to see some of the desired changes, or some of the desired outcomes. I'll put like this: as you make the changes in lifestyle, and you have a definite way of determining whether or not your diet is working. For example, you look at your blood pressure, look at the changes over time. You look at your blood sugar, look at the changes over time. Look at your weight, the changes over time. So those are two food examples of a service versus a program. So getting back to programs, when we develop programs, the programs should be relevant. And when I say relevant, they should be meaningful to your clients and communities. They should really address the issues that they are having. They should flow from the organization's theory of change. And remember, we talked about the theory of change in the last lesson. They should take into account the community needs as well as the assets. So some of the deficits, so to speak, versus some of the things that, the very good things that the community has going for it. And they should also take into account the strategic plans. So there should be an alignment of goals, objectives, resources, activities, and desired outcomes. So number 3, productive organizations standardize best practice. So we want to look at an article, More Bang for the Buck, by Alex Newhoff and Robert Searle. They published this article for the Stanford Review back in spring 2008. They found that, in their study of some of the high-profile education organizations, they found that these organizations tend to identify and spread their most cost-effective practices throughout the organization. For example, Jumpstart has standardized every aspect of its program and made these practices available in hard copy guidebooks as well as on its intranet. So basically what they're doing is institutionalizing systems. They go on to say that core members can sign into the system at any time and get lesson plans and curricula. They also looked at Teach for America as a case study, and they found that Teach for America created a centralized information system to capture and share best practices. This sort of standardization helps to keep costs down by increasing efficiency, and staff spend less time reinventing the wheel and more time executing effective practices. And I don't know about you, but I have definitely been there in my own organization and as a consultant working with other organizations, getting to a point where sometimes the paperwork can be so overwhelming, and if we're not careful to really develop an efficient system, we'll end up doing the same thing over and over and over if we don't systematize our filing systems. And that eats into time. It pulls time away from time we could be serving clients or fundraising. So it's very important to make sure that your management systems that support your programs are in place, and that also includes filing. Never underestimate the importance of having really good files and being able to retrieve information on a dime. Number 4, productive organizations invest in staff and critical operational activities. So going back to the same article, Newhoff and Cyril found that organizations that are top performers tend to invest more in the activities most important to the success of the programs and sustainability of their organizations. So when it comes to prioritizing and allocating resources, they put more money and more resources into those activities that are going to be, have the greatest impact or the greatest bang for the buck in terms of serving their clients and communities. And for example, they found that Jumpstart invested in building its management capacity, noting that when it comes to salaries, quote, paying more costs less. They found that better compensation reduces turnover and it increases the average experience level of the staff and builds institutional knowledge. And when you have that in place, you tend to be able to attract even more resources. Number 5, productive organizations measure progress. They establish performance measurement systems to give timely feedback about their costs, outputs, and outcomes. So going back to the same article, they found that Year Up has created a set of PowerPoint performance dashboards for reporting regularly on 6 critical areas of their work. And these factors are recruiting and retaining talented staff, cultivating a solid student pipeline, teaching marketable skills, providing high quality service to corporate partners, positioning students for ongoing success, and creating a sustainable program infrastructure. The management team then sets performance benchmarks and rates its progress against each benchmark. So basically what they're saying here is Europe has a scorecard, so to speak, where they grade themselves on these 6 factors, and then they have a standard or a target for each one of those factors. And if they find that they're underperforming in any of those areas, then they go back and they evaluate what happened and they work for continuous improvement. Number 6, productive organizations engage in process evaluation. So a process evaluation basically focuses on the day-to-day operations and how well those are working. So process evaluations allow nonprofits to look at how they develop their infrastructure or their management systems and how the infrastructure helps to achieve the desired outcomes. So this includes organizational structures, management systems, supporting programs like communications and marketing, and even fund development in order to get the outcomes that everyone wants to achieve. So basically what this is saying is, yes, we need to focus on the change we want to make, but if we don't have the necessary supporting systems in place, it's going to be very, very difficult to make those changes. So the focus of a process evaluation is on the types and quantities of services delivered, who benefits from those services, the resources used to deliver the services, the practical problems encountered, and the way such problems were resolved. So when we take process evaluation a step further, you can also look at the processes of program management and infrastructure together that is the capacity of an organization to deliver on its promised outcomes. Again, we can focus on making change, but if we don't have the right systems in place to make things run smoothly, it'll be very, very difficult to maximize the impact of the program that we have. So for example, process evaluation questions might include what specific interventions were put into place by the program in order to fight the problem being tackled? Did the interventions work or not? And how and why? What were the kinds of problems encountered in delivering the program? Were there enough resources from the beginning to do it well? Was it well managed? Were staff trained or educated to the right level of the program design? Is there skill at facilitating the program processes from the beginning to end? Was there adequate support to the program? So these are all things that you need to think about as you're assessing how well your programs are running. Number 7, productive organizations engage in outcome evaluation. So unlike the process evaluation, which focuses on the day-to-day operations and how well you can deliver those services, outcome evaluations are used to assess the effectiveness of a program in producing change. It focuses on difficult questions that ask what happened to the program participants and how much of a difference the program made for them. For example, outcome questions for a smoking cessation program might include: did the program succeed in helping people to stop smoking? Was the program more successful with certain groups of people than with others? What aspects of the program did participants find gave the greatest benefit? So that concludes Lesson 3. If you have any questions regarding this course, you can address them to me at ValerieFLeonard@nonprofitutopia.com. And Nonprofit Utopia members may post in the course forum. If you have not done so, please consider joining Nonprofit Utopia. You can go to our website at nonprofitutopia.mn.co. You can follow Nonprofit Utopia on Twitter and find Utopia on Facebook. And once you find us on Facebook, be sure to like us so that you can keep up with the latest developments. I encourage you strongly, if you have not done so, to complete the quiz, and then I will see you in the next lesson. Take care.